I went from idea to execution in just 90 days without the title or the role. Hope is not a strategy. Applying to 100 jobs online is not a strategy. But I kept doing it. And in the next 2 weeks, I started getting rejections after rejections. Leadership isn't about asking for permission. Regret of never trying will haunt you throughout your career and your life. You are your best cheerleader. You need to constantly show up every day. Show who you are. Share your value. Share your stories. That's your personal brand. 90 days. No title, no handouts, just execution. That's all it took to go from making that one decision that changed my entire career. I was sitting in a noisy cafe in San Francisco with nothing but an idea when I made this one decision. I'm going to become a CISO, a Chief Security Officer. Sounds insane, right? I had zero prior CISO experience, not even a director title, just a bold vision with no plan and no roadmap. But 90 days later, I signed my first CISO contract with a top tier financial company. So, how did I go from not qualified on paper to welcome to the boardroom in just 3 months? This episode is that roadmap. Because what if I told you there was a simpler way, not easy, but a simpler way to pivot and break into your dream security leadership role in 90 days without the title? Here's a problem we see every time. You want to pivot to a new role, you're asked for the title and experience in that role already, which you cannot get without getting into that role to gain that experience. How do you get past that catch-22? How do you pivot? In this episode, I'll be sharing with you my complete step-by-step roadmap that I used with habits, mindset, tools, tactics, and techniques that helped me pivot from a senior manager, not a VP, not even a director, to get my first C-level gig in just 90 days without any prior CISO title or role. If you're in cybersecurity and tired of being overlooked, if you're mid-career and wondering, how do I make the leap? Or if you're chasing a leadership role that no one's handing out to you, this one's for you. Let's break it down step by step. It all started in March, many years ago, as I was sitting in a cafe in San Francisco with my mentor when this idea just hit me. Then and there, I made this decision and I told him, I'm going to become a CISO. But I'd never been a CISO before. Yet in June, that very same year, I signed my first official CISO contract. I went from idea to execution in just 90 days without the title or the role. How did I do it? How can you do it for any security leadership role, whether it's GRC, security operations, head of IAM, or a C-level role like a CISO? Because title doesn't matter. Here's your 90-day roadmap right here for you. Phase 1, stop making this mistake. As I got back home, I started working on my resume and applying left, right, and center to any and all CISO or similar leadership roles that I found online. I didn't think much about which specific roles at that time. I didn't have any clear strategy. Sure, I tailored my resume a bit for each one, but I was literally spraying and praying. Don't do that. Hope is not a strategy. Applying to 100 jobs online is not a strategy. But I kept doing it. I had gone all in with zero strategy and applied left, right, and center. And in the next 2 weeks, I started getting rejections after rejections. I must have received more than 12 rejections in a span of just 2 weeks. One of the biggest reasons being I didn't have a CISO title. I'd never been a CISO before. So why would they hire me to be a CISO? Nonetheless, with so many rejections in such a short time, I was shocked. This was definitely not what I was hoping for. Then I made yet another mistake. I went to one of my ex-bosses and shared with him my goal of becoming a CISO and asked for his advice. But he himself had never been a CISO or had been in a CISO role. Despite that, I made the mistake of asking him for his advice and support. Do not ever do that. Never ask people for advice that have never done it, that have never walked the walk, that have never had the scars. Anyway, as I meet him in person and I'm asking him for his support, this is literally what he replies. Stay in your lane. I kid you not. He tells me categorically that I wasn't gonna get it and that I should just stay in my lane. Phase 2, overcoming rejections. Now, by this time, I not only had more than 12 rejections, I also had someone I trusted to tell me straight to my face, stay in your lane. I was both shocked and heartbroken. It took me 3 weeks to gather myself up and finally realize that I was asking someone who, 1, had never done it, 2, was insecure that I would go higher than him and faster, spoiler alert, which I did, And 3, someone who believed in putting people down, not lifting them up. What I started with the spark as I was chatting with my mentor, like a light bulb just went on. But then right after that, I went through a hard bump in the road with zero strategy and more rejections than I want to remember, followed by a punch in the gut by my former manager, literally telling me to stay in my lane. Now, here's where it gets interesting. All of that disappointment, shock, and pain was followed by an extremely important lesson. Leadership isn't about asking for permission. Leadership isn't about titles. To become a leader, you need to position yourself as one. Similarly, to get a particular role, you need to position yourself as an experienced professional in that role, both internally in your mind, because it is also a mind game, but also externally for others. As I realized that, even though it was hard, I got up, even more fired this time, and decided to do it differently. No matter what, whenever you try to do something different, something new, it will not only scare you, but it will also scare people around you for different reasons. So you just need to remember one thing: that regret of never trying will haunt you throughout your career and your life more than failing ever will. That brings me to the next stage. Phase 3, pivoting is hard. How to break the catch-22. I needed to change the strategy. I realized that all those rejections happened because they were asking for a title and experience as a CISO. They wanted me to already have been a CISO to get a CISO job. But you need the job to get the experience, and the title, you need to get the job. It's a typical catch-22. That was not easy to be broken, but it needed to be broken. So here's what I did. I realized that I had to showcase how what I had done before in my previous roles would directly help me in this new role, and that I could hit the ground running. This is crucial. Write it out. You need to not only showcase what you did, but how that will directly be valuable in the new role, and that you'll be able to hit the ground running. Even without the CISO title, I needed to show that the work I had done before and the experience I had built were exactly relevant for the new role and the new job I was applying for. So I started writing down all the different projects I had worked on, all the different activities and tasks I had done, all the outcomes that I had achieved. I started researching what this new job, this new role required, what it was really asking for. I started talking to my CISO friends what their job was on a day-to-day basis and what the hiring managers were really looking for. By the way, today you can use ChatGPT to do all that research and mapping in a matter of minutes, maybe even seconds. I didn't have access to ChatGPT or Claude that time, but based on my roadmap and interviews, I created my top AI prompts to help you prepare for your dream role. So check the link below to grab my free copy of the AI prompts. Back to the story. So I did the research, and then based on all the projects I had done and the outcomes I had achieved, I started tailoring my resume to showcase very, very clearly what those outcomes were. For example, I wouldn't just say I did vulnerability management, but something like I led and grew security operations program to provide 90% coverage across various business functions. Or I wouldn't just say I fixed security risks, but that I led risk management to help reduce launch time for products through a business and a threat-driven risk management approach aligned with, say, ISO 27005 or whatever framework you're using. Now, here's the thing. Most people misunderstand the message of a CV. Resumes don't just need you to say what you did. They need you to show what you did and achieved aligns with what they're looking for in the new role. Let me say that again. Write it down. Resumes don't just need you to say what you did. They need you to show how what you did and achieved aligns with what they're looking for in the new role. That outcomes that you achieved, they need to match the job description and their expectations. Another reason why this is important. Fair or unfair, the hiring manager needs to feel confident that you can hit the ground running, of course with some support and guidance, but that needs to be minimum. That's the fundamental part of breaking the catch-22, because you don't have the title yet, or you've never been in that role before. And the main question you're trying to answer both through your CV and then also through your interviews is, how do you showcase that existing experience actually matches the experience that they will be needing in the new role that you will be stepping in? Because here's the bottom line. Experience matters the most, but experience is independent of titles. And showcasing and communicating how your experiences and the outcomes you achieved are valuable in your new role, and that you can hit the ground running, even when it sounds unfair, is exactly what hiring managers, or at least most hiring managers, are looking for. You need to communicate that in the CV, and you need to communicate that in the interviews. To add to that, here's one more key thing I changed in my CV. I added a profile summary on the top, giving a brief highlight of my experience and outcomes throughout my career, tailored specifically to that role. Below, I'll also link my CV template that landed me all my roles over the last 8 years or so. So now when I started tailoring my resume, I started to be even more careful or more considerate which jobs I was applying for. I was no longer applying to 100 jobs left, right, and center. And I was more considerate in things like, is this a company that probably never had a CISO before? Which is not always a good thing, but on the flip side, at least then their expectations are slightly different and maybe lower than if it's a large corporation. Phase 4, breaking through the interview barrier. Just before I had been applying, I was working as a consultant and I was engaged by a very reputable fintech company in the Nordics that needed help with cybersecurity and privacy. And at that same time, they were merging with 2 other fintech companies. So I built a great rapport with the CISO there, so much so that within just a few months, I was not only doing one project for them, I was managing all security and privacy for the CISO and for the company, also helping them integrate their ISMSs from the other 2 companies that they were merging with, which meant in reality, I was also helping them with their security risk and management from a mergers and acquisitions perspective. And because I was doing all of that, I also became the lead for security and privacy for that company for the international go-to-market as they wanted to expand internationally. And I was scribbling in my notes, it occurred to me, I had some kind of a CISO type experience without the CISO title. My title was a senior manager and head of cloud security, but was way below in the hierarchy from a CISO role. Now, this was the most interesting part. 1, I was not an employee of that company. 2, everybody thought that I was an employee of that company because I was leading so many projects for them, working deeply with them in different things, and was helping them out in so many different areas. 3, I had become the right hand to the CISO, even reporting to the board on his behalf as an external consultant. But that gave me so much massive experience of what actually a CISO role entails, which is what I initially missed and later realized that I needed to showcase strongly both in my resume and in my interviews. The number one reason I broke that catch-22 and was able to get the CISO contract in 90 days is this. Because I had another aha moment of realizing that I had experience with the fintech company and the financial services environment. And here's the thing, industry experience always matters and trumps. So I started targeting jobs in that industry. I combined how I would showcase my experience that I had from a CISO type role, even though I was not in a CISO role, combining that with really targeting specifically to specific industry and specific roles that were perfect match for me or better suited for me. I became much more targeted to what I was applying for and brought these stories and those experiences to my resume and in those interviews. And my surprise for my first CISO gig, I did end up going for a large corporation for a financial services company serving critical infrastructure in multiple countries, and I signed the contract in June of the same year. 90 days from idea to execution and never looked back. And not only that, in addition to my CISO role, I also served as the head of security, enterprise risk, and business continuity. Not just cyber risk, I'm talking about enterprise risk. But here's the thing, you have to obviously do your homework. Understand and research what the role is about, what the company is doing. You need to be able to articulate how you in this new role that you're applying for will help the company achieve their business goals, achieve their mission, depending on where they are in their journey. Let's look at an example of the fintech that I gave you, right? The goal of the fintech company was not just to have security and privacy in place. They obviously wanted to be able to use that to expand and go to international market. But they also wanted to make sure they were able to integrate with other companies they were merging with at the same time, complying with the regulations because of the financial space, and be able to integrate and streamline their operations from different products that were coming in from different companies into the ecosystem. Understanding what the companies are doing and what could be strategic for them, and how you would help in that role strategically to help them get where they want to go even faster, that's what literally gets you the job. For that one CISO role that I ended up signing, I had 4 rounds of interview, even interviewed by the COO and by multiple members of the team that would eventually become my direct reports, and even gave a board presentation. Throughout all of these steps, I kept narrating my stories, my experiences with consistency, with examples of how I did what I did, what results I achieved, how that would be crucial in this new role, and how I will step into this new role, hitting the ground running to help the business achieve their goals. I was asked that I'd never been a CISO before, and how could I be a good fit for such a big company managing critical infrastructure? Difficult question, but a very valid question. To that, I answered by sharing that while I did not have the title, I had successfully managed complex projects for companies in similar industry while it was going through a three-way mergers and acquisition and helping them with their go-to-market strategy for international expansion. I shared my real examples of how I reported to their board. To be able to do that with confidence, I had to write down all those experiences and connect them to the value they would provide to the company in my new role. And if it's even stronger if you can find those stories from same or similar industries, similar company size, similar businesses or operation model, because then you're absolutely going to stand out amidst the crowd. That was key. Phase 5, how much should you pivot? Here's the thing that I've learned. When you're pivoting, you can't pivot 3 scales or 3 levels in one go. Technically you can, but it gets harder with every level. What do you mean by that? Like, think about it. If you're pivoting a role and you're pivoting a sector and industry and you're pivoting countries all at the same time, with every additional pivot you need to do, it gets harder. But imagine if you're in the same country and the same industry, but now you're just pivoting the role. Or let's say you're in the same role in the same industry, but now you're pivoting a country. Or you're in the same role and same country and you're pivoting the industry. So when you pivot one step, it's easier. When you pivot 2 steps, it's a bit harder. And when you pivot through all 3 different factors, it's even more harder. So the more levels of pivoting that you have, the harder it gets. So being strategic about it and having that industry experience was one of the key reasons that contributed to why I got that gig and signed my first CISO contract. So in addition to being strategic about which roles I apply to, tailoring my resume to not just tell what I did, but also what outcomes I achieved and how those things will help me in the new role and help the company achieve the outcomes with me being in that role while being able to hit the ground running and then be able to showcase not only that experience, but especially also industry experience. All of these together were the key factors that helped me literally break my Catch-22 and land my CISO role in 90 days from idea to execution. Like, I was so strategic about it. I had to be. As I said earlier, one other key factor was that I was actually started preparing for the interviews in a very different way, which later on I also converted to my AI prompts that now I use like my holy grail for interviews. And even my students use it when they're prepping for theirs. And yes, people do look for the title before the title. I get it. It's hard to break it, but it's not impossible. Which brings me to the last part of your 90-day roadmap. Phase 6. Who knows you matters more than what you know. Everything I shared with you so far, it is not relevant just for the CISO role. All the pivoting that I've done, I used all these habits, skills, and tactics along the way. That role that you're looking for could be a GRC manager or a head of security operations or identity and access manager or whatever it is. Oftentimes, these roles will ask you for for a GRC manager, they will ask you for a 5-year GRC experience before you can do it. Same thing with the most CISO roles. You need to have at least 5 years in a CISO role with a CISO title. But you don't have those 5 years in a CISO role because you didn't have that title. So obviously it gets harder, but it's not impossible, right? One of the other things that played a very key role in all of this is that recruiter that I was talking to for the specific role actually knew me from LinkedIn. So here's something that I've realized. Over the last, let's say 8 years now, not a single job that I landed, I really applied to it. I mean, even for this job, I sent in my resume, but I was contacted by this recruiter who then asked me to send in my resume. So over the last years, every single job that I landed, I didn't apply to a single one of them. It's because I've unknowingly just built my personal brand, but I didn't even know what the heck personal brand was. You are your best cheerleader. You need to not only use the avenues of resume and CVs and interviews, but also now you're connected to the internet, to potential hiring managers and to potential employers. You need to constantly show up every day, every second day, every third day, or every week, or whatever consistency means for you, and put out your thought leadership. Show who you are. Share your value, share your stories. That's your personal brand. You are your personal brand. You need to show up and keep on showing up consistently because it rewards you when you need it the most without even realizing it. And that's been one of the biggest lessons I have learned. And that helped me pivot as many times that I have done, from a hacker to a head of risk management to head of IAM to head of cloud security to a CISO to all the different roles, head of security, enterprise and risk and business continuity and whatnot. Sure, I did not have a brand or a LinkedIn profile in the first few years of my career, but even then I used those arenas that were available to me. Even before that, I was going to, for example, conferences and doing workshops and speaking gigs and talks. And by the way, I'm an introvert. So it was never natural and easy for me to do it. I learned those skills. If you can, use as many avenues that are there to utilize it to your best. All of this combined is a part of your 90-day career roadmap, because who knows you still matters a lot. You can't be just doing one thing. You're still focusing on one goal. The goal is one, right? But you're building kind of like multiple revenue streams in a way. And then you're hitting all of them. Like if you were to build your career portfolio, you would have multiple revenue streams in that portfolio. It's similar to that. It's your career portfolio, and you're building a career plan like you are the founder of your career, and your career is an investment portfolio, and you're investing in different streams of income for you, which includes building your personal brand. So apart from this 6-phase roadmap, here are the 5 key takeaways I want you to take with you today. You don't need the title. You need the evidence of impact you can make in your role while you hit the ground running. Number 2, treat your career like a VC portfolio. Invest in multiple streams feeding into that one goal. Number 3, don't just apply. Align, strategize, and tell your stories. Number 4, build your personal brand way before you need it. Number 5, don't just spray and pray, because hope is not a strategy. If you're serious about becoming a CISO or GRC leader or a cybersecurity executive or a head of security operations center, use my AI prompts and CV template, link in the description below. Show up online, tell your stories, and most importantly, commit with urgency. If I can do it in 90 days and make such a big pivot, so can you. Hit subscribe for more career blueprints, security leadership insights, and behind the scene playbooks that nobody else is sharing. This is Monica signing off.